Under the sea, under the sea. Geneva Conventions, more like suggestions.
Don't you agree?
Once a proud empire, no slaves forever. Under the sea. Greetings, my dear viewers. That spectacular intro was done by V, since my singing voice is terrible. I mean, his is too, but he can at least get closer to the song than I can. Anyways, welcome back to Pathfinder Hero Frame, where we take a look at different ancestries within Pathfinder 2nd Edition and match them up to classes and backgrounds to see what types of characters we could make using the lore of these races. And today we are taking a look at Azarketi, an ancestry which I can only describe as a war crime. You see, the Azarketi were once humans from a empire, I believe known as Lower Azlanti. But something happened in an event known as Earthfall, causing aboliths and their veiled masters to rule over and experiment on the citizens of that empire, and then transformed them into aquatic beings and enslaved them. Some of the text said that the aboliths saved the Azarketi before torturing and transforming them and then enslaving them. So I don't exactly know what is what. All I do know is that the aboliths ruled over the Azarketi when they were human and committed several war crimes and turned them into the Azarketi. So yeah. Other names for the Azarketi are Azlanti, Gilman, and Children of the Deep. So let's go ahead and get right into things and see what characters are possible. Starting things off with the heritages, we have Ancient Scale Azarketi, we have Benthic Azarketi, Inerd Azarketi, Mist Breath Azarketi, Murk-Eyed Azarketi, River Azarketi, Spined Azarketi, Tactile Azarketi, and Thalassic Azarketi. What do we say in Azarketi? A lot! Holy flying flip! That is a lot of heritages. Now, for our backgrounds, and unfortunately we were not given a list of suggestions for the Azarketi background, so I went over the lore of the Azarketi and each of the different heritages and their descriptions to try to figure out what exactly a background for the stereotypical Azarketi might be. Now I've come up with this list. Since the Azarketi are in the oceans, or in some cases rivers, and are tied to nature, it stands to reason that some, if not most of them, are anti-tech activists, since technology has been known to pollute the waters. Next is the Aspiring River Monarch. This might be for more of those royal sort of Azarketis. Then you have Astrologers, Astrological Augur, Cultist for those Azarketi that are still in ties with their aboleth masters, Deep Sea Diver, Elementally Infused. Since they are in the ocean, they most likely have ties to the elemental plane of water, herbalist, hunter, magical experiment, once again tying those ties into the aboleth, experimenting on a human populace and turning them into these Azarketi, raised by belief, refugee, since they were slaves to the aboleth, root worker, scholar, scholar of the ancients, in case some Azarketi are trying to find their Aslanti settlement roots, scouts, servants, nicer way of saying slaves, song of the deep, for those who probably don't come up for air at all, since they do have a special condition where they can just not breathe air at all for an extra ability score improvement. Song of the Deep is actually a neat background. Anyway, moving on, we have Tide Watcher, Undersea Enthusiast, and Wanderlust. For classes, we are given these recommendations: the Bard, Druid, Fighter, Ranger, Sorcerer, and Wizard. Now, let's go ahead and go over each class to find out what might be possible as far as a subclass goes to tie in to the Azarketi. And some of these might actually tie to the aboleth, since some Azarketi do still serve the aboleth, while others don't and are free. First thing is going to be we're taking a look at the Alchemist, and I think that the research fields that would best fit an Azarketi, especially if we're looking at a Azarketi still among its peers, would be the Chirurgeon, the Mutagenist, because, you know, aboleth transformed them and mutated their forms, and Toxicologist, since the Spine Azarketi have a special attack that deals poison damage. So that makes sense. Next is the Barbarian. For instincts, I would say Animal, Dragon, Elemental, and Superstitious would actually work perfectly for an Azarketi. For your Animal, I would definitely recommend Shark. For Dragon, I would recommend the Black and Bronze Dragon, since you can indeed find some Azarketi in swampy areas, as well as the deep oceans. And of course, the element would be water, but you could also choose air and wood, though that'll probably be less likely. Next is the Bard. We're going with the muses of the Enigma and the Polymath, mostly to tie into the gods they serve outside of the aboleth, and we will talk about that when we get into Cleric. But before we do, we are going to take a look at Champion, because the Paladin and Liberator are definitely some good champion options for those Azarketi who are not under the rule of an aboleth, and are indeed against aboleth and their veiled masters. But for those few who are serving the aboleths, I would recommend the Tyrant. Next is Cleric. Once again, going over with the Cloistered Cleric doctrine, we have two recommended deities. We have Gozre and Desna. These two gods have some form of ties to nature, which is definitely a plus. Next is Druid. Speaking of nature, I would say Druidic orders that would be perfect for the Azarketi are the Animal, Leaf, and Wave. More Animal and Wave than there would be a Azarketi Druidic Order of the Leaf. Next is Kineticist. For your elements, I would recommend either air, water, or wood. Though, again, more often than not, you'll probably go in with the element of water. Next is the Magus. I don't see too many Azarketi taking up the Magus class, but if you do, I would recommend the hybrid studies of Inexorable Iron and Twisting Tree. Next is Psychic, once again tying into the Aboleth origins. We're going with the Psychic class, and I would recommend for your conscious mind having some Abolithian themes, and the best ones that I can think of are the Infinite Eye and the Silent Whisper. For your subconscious mind, Emotional Acceptance definitely ties into any Azarketi that are trying to further break free from the ties of the Aboleth, so they are not being controlled by them. Or make sure that their friends cannot be controlled by the Aboleth, which Emotional Acceptance does. Another subconscious mind that I think would work perfectly is, of course, Gathered Lore, just in case you're trying to find more information about the Aboleth and the Veiled Masters, so you know how to better take them down. Next is Rogue. Mostly you're going to see the Eldritch Trickster for any Azarketi, but I would also recommend the Mastermind for some of those Azarketi who are not magically inclined. Next is Sorcerer, once again tying into the Aboleth experiments. I would recommend the Bloodlines of the Aberrant, and since you are living in the water, Elemental. Next is Swashbuckler. I only saw the Battle Dancer style being appropriate for the Azarketi. Next is Witch. And to tie into the Aboleth, I would definitely recommend the Curse, Pax, and the Wild. Wild only for the purposes of not being affected by the Aboleth or their Veiled Masters. And I just realized I forgot to put in Wizard, but I don't entirely know the best classes to pick other than Illusion and Enchantment. So you might not be seeing the slide here, but those are the two schools of magic that I think would work perfectly for an Azarketi wizard. You could also go with a Universalist, but I think that you're going to be seeing more illusions and enchantments. And with that being said, that is all the time I have for you today. What did you think of the Azarketi? I do see a couple of interesting builds for this ancestry. Tell me what sort of builds you would come up with in the comment section below. Until next time, this has been Drehan, and I am offline.